The history of Proto-Slavic is the linguistic history of the Proto-Slavic language, the hypothetical ancestor of the modern-day Slavic languages, as it developed from the ancestral Proto-Balto-Slavic language, which is the parent language of the Balto-Slavic languages. The first 2,000 years or so consist of the pre-Slavic era, a long period during which none of the later dialectal differences between Slavic languages had yet happened, the last stage in which the language remained without internal differences that later characterize different Slavic languages can be dated around 500 AD and is sometimes termed Proto-Slavic proper or Early Proto-Slavic. Following this is the Common Slavic period, during which the first dialectal differences appeared but the entire Slavic-speaking area continued to function as a single language, with sound changes tending to spread throughout the entire area. By around 1000 AD, the area had broken up into separate East Slavic, West Slavic and South Slavic languages, and in the following centuries it broke up further into the various modern Slavic languages, of which the following are extant: Belarusian, Russian, Rusyn and Ukrainian in the east, Czech, Slovak, Polish, Kashubian and the Sorbian languages in the west, and Bulgarian, Macedonian, Serbo-Croatian and Slovenian in the south. The period from the early centuries AD to the end of the Common Slavic period around 1000 AD was a time of rapid change, concurrent with the explosive growth of the Slavic-speaking area. By the end of this period, most of the features of the modern Slavic languages had been established. The first historical documentation of the Slavic languages is found in isolated names and words in Greek documents starting in the 6th century AD, when Slavic-speaking tribes first came in contact with the Greek-speaking Byzantine Empire. The first continuous texts date from the late 9th century AD and were written in Old Church Slavonic, based on the Slavic dialect used in the region of Thessaloniki in Greek Macedonia, as part of the Christianization of the Slavs by Saints Cyril and Methodius and the followers. Because these texts were written during the Common Slavic period, the language they document is close to the ancestral Proto-Slavic language and is still presenting enough unity. Therefore it is critically important to the linguistic reconstruction of Slavic language history. This article covers historical developments up through the end of the Common Slavic period. For later developments, see History of the Slavic languages. Introduction. Proto-Slavic is descended from Proto-Balto-Slavic. This language in turn is descended from Proto-Indo-European, the parent language of the vast majority of European languages. Proto-Slavic gradually evolved into the various Slavic languages during the latter half of the first millennium AD, concurrent with the explosive growth of the Slavic-speaking area. There is no scholarly consensus concerning either the number of stages involved in the development of the language of the terms used to describe them. For consistency and convenience, this article and a Proto-Slavic article adopt the following scheme. Pre-Slavic, a long period of gradual development. The most significant phonological developments during this period involved the prosodic system, e.g., tonal and other registered distinctions on syllables. Proto-Slavic proper or Early Common Slavic, the early, uniform stage of Common Slavic, a period of rapid phonological change. There are no dialectal distinctions reconstructible from this period. Middle Common Slavic, the stage with the earliest identifiable dialectal distinctions. Rapid phonological change continued, although with the massive expansion of the Slavic-speaking area. Although some dialectal variation did exist, most sound changes were still uniform and consistent in their application. By the end of this stage, the vowel and consonant phonemes of the language were largely the same as those still still found in the modern languages. For this reason, reconstructed Proto-Slavic forms commonly found in scholarly works and etymological dictionaries normally correspond to this period. Late Common Slavic, the last stage in which the whole Slavic-speaking area still functioned as a single language, with sound changes normally propagating throughout the entire area, although often with significant dialectal variation in the details. Slavic scholars differ widely in both the terminology and periodization of these developments. Some scholars do not use the term Common Slavic at all. For some others, the Common Slavic period comes after Proto-Slavic rather than including it. Some scholars divide the Common Slavic period into 5 or more stages, while others use as few as 2. Origin: Proto-Balto-Slavic. The most favored model, the Kurgan hypothesis, currently places the heimat of the Proto-Indo-European people in the Pontic steppe, represented archaeologically by the 5th millennium BCE Sredny Stog culture. From here, various daughter dialects dispersed radially in several waves between c. 4400 BCE and 3000 BCE. The phonological changes which set Balto-Slavic apart from other Indo-European languages probably lasted from c. 3000 to 1000 BCE, a period known as Common Proto-Balto-Slavic. Cortland links the earliest stages of Balto-Slavic development with the Middle Dnieper culture, which connects the Kordadwer and Yamna cultures. Kurganists connect the latter two cultures with the so-called Northwest group and the Iranian-speaking steppe nomads, respectively. This fits with the linguistic evidence in that Balto-Slavic appears to have had close contacts with Indo-Iranian and Proto-Germanic. An association between Balto-Slavic and Germanic has been proposed on the basis of lexical and morphological similarities that are unique to these languages. Apart from a proposed genetic relationship, the similarities are likely due to continuous contacts, whereby common loanwords spread through the communities in the forest zones at an early time of the linguistic development. Similarly, Balto-Slavic and Indo-Iranian might have formed some kind of continuum from the northwest to the southeast, given that they share both Satamization and the Roki sound law. On the other hand, genetic studies have shown that Slavs and North Indians share much larger amounts of the R1a haplogroup associated to the spread of Indo-European languages than most Germanic populations. The Balto-Slavic Indo-Iranian link might thus be a result of a large part of common ancestry between Eastern Europeans and Indo-Iranians. Balto-Slavic then expanded along the forest zone, replacing earlier centum dialects, such as pre-Proto-Germanic. This might explain the presence of a few prehistoric centum adstratal lexemes. Pre-Slavic: a pre-Slavic period began c. 1500 to 1000 BCE, whereby certain phonological changes and linguistic contacts did not disperse evenly through all Balto-Slavic dialects. The development into Proto-Slavic probably occurred along the southern periphery of the Proto-Balto-Slavic continuum. The most archaic Slavic hydronyms are found here, along the Middle Dnieper, Pripyat and Upper Dniester rivers. This agrees well with the fact that inherited Common Slavic vocabulary does not include detailed terminology for physical surface features peculiar of the mountains of the steppe, nor any relating to the sea, to coastal features, littoral flora or fauna, or saltwater fishes. On the other hand, it does include well-developed terminology for inland bodies of water and kinds of forest, for the trees, plants, animals and birds indigenous to the temperate forest zone, and for the fish native to its waters. Indeed, Trubachov argues that this location fostered contacts between speakers of pre-Proto-Slavic with the cultural innovations which emanated from Central Europe and the steppe. Although language groups cannot be straightforwardly equated with archaeological cultures, the emergence of a pre-Proto-Slavic linguistic community corresponds temporally and geographically with the Komarov and Chernolese cultures. Both linguists and archaeologists therefore often locate the Slavic heimat specifically within this area. In proto-historical times, the Slavic homeland experienced intrusions of foreign elements. Beginning from c. 500 BCE to 200 CE, the Scythians and then the Sarmatians expanded the control into the forest steppe. A few Eastern Iranian loanwords, especially relating to religious and cultural practices, have been seen as evidence of cultural influences. Subsequently, loanwords of Germanic origin also appear. This is connected to the movement of East Germanic groups into the Vistula Basin, and subsequently to the Middle Dnieper Basin, associated with the appearance of the Pravosk and Chernyakov cultures, respectively. Despite these developments, Slavic remained conservative and was still typologically very similar to other Balto-Slavic dialects. Even into the Common Era, the various Balto-Slavic dialects formed a dialect continuum stretching from the Vistula to the Don and Oka basins, and from the Baltic and Upper Volga to southern Russia and northern Ukraine. Exactly when Slavs began to identify as a distinct ethno-cultural unit remains a subject of debate. For example, Kobylinski links the phenomenon to the Zarubinets culture 200 BCE to 200 CE. Vladimir Baron places Slavic ethnogenesis within the Chernyakov era, while Goethe places it in the Danube basin in the 6th century CE. It is likely that linguistic affinity played an important role in defining group identity for the Slavicis. The term Slav is proposed to be an autonym referring to people who speak. Another important aspect of this period is that the Iranian dialects of the Scythians and Sarmatians had a considerable impact on the Slavic vocabulary. During the extensive contacts between the aforementioned languages and Proto-Slavic for about a millennium, and the eventual absorption and assimilation of the Iranian-speaking Scythians, Sarmatians, and Alans in Eastern Europe by the Proto-Slavic population of the region, Proto-Slavic and Common Slavic. Beginning around 500 AD, the Slavic speakers rapidly expanded in all directions from a homeland in eastern Poland and western Ukraine. As it expanded throughout Eastern Europe, it obliterated whatever remained of easternmost Celtic, Avar, Venetic, possibly Dacian, as well as many other Balto-Slavic dialects, and the Slav ethnonym spread out considerably. By the 8th century AD, Proto-Slavic is believed to have been spoken uniformly from Thessaloniki to Novgorod. What caused the rapid expansion of Slavic remains a topic of discussion. Traditional theories link its spread to a demographic expansion of Slavs migrating radially from their heimat, whereas more processual theories attempt to modify the picture by introducing concepts such as elite dominance and language shifts. Literary and archaeological evidence suggests that Eastern European barbaricum in the 6th century was linguistically and culturally diverse, somewhat going against the idea of a large demographic expansion of an ethnically homogeneous Slavic people. Instead, Proto-Slavic might have been lingua franca among the various barbarian ethnicities that emerged in the Danubian, Carpathian and steppe regions of Europe after the fall of the Hun Empire, such as the Sclaveni, Antes, and Avars. Cultural contacts between emerging societal elites might have led to the language of one agricultural community spread to other agricultural societies. This has been substantiated archaeologically, seen by the development of networks which spread over Slavic fibulae, artifacts representing social status and group identity. Horace Lunt argues that only as a lingua franca could Slavic have remained mutually intelligible over vast areas of Europe, and that its disintegration into different dialects occurred after the collapse of the Avar Khanate. However, even proponents of this theory concede that it fails to explain how Slavic spread to the Baltic and Western Russia, areas which had no historical connection with the Avar Empire. Whatever the case, Johanna Nichols points out that the expansion of Slavic was not just a linguistic phenomenon, but the expansion of an ethnic identity. Due to incompletely understood socio-cultural factors, a number of sound changes occurred that uniformly affected all later dialects even well after the Slavic-speaking area had become dialectally differentiated. For at least 4 or 5 centuries after the initial Slavic dispersion, this makes it difficult to identify a single point at which Proto-Slavic broke up into regional dialects. As a result, it is customary to speak of a Common Slavic period during which sound changes spread across the entire Slavic-speaking area, but not necessarily with uniform results. The early Common Slavic period, from roughly 400 to 600 AD, can be identified as Proto-Slavic proper. The onomastic evidence and glosses of Slavic words in foreign language texts show no detectable regional differences during this period. During the Middle Common Slavic period, from perhaps 600 to 800 AD, some dialectal differences existed, especially in peripheral dialects, but most sound changes still occurred uniformly. Reconstructed Proto-Slavic forms are normally from this period. It is thought that the distinction of long and short vowels by quality, normally reflected in Proto-Slavic reconstructed forms, occurred during this time. Greek transcriptions from the 5th and 6th centuries AD still indicate Common Slavic *O as a. During the late Common Slavic period, from c. 800 to 1000 AD, conceptual sound changes still occurred across the entire Slavic area, but often in dialectally differentiated ways. In addition, migrations of Uralic and Romance-speaking peoples into modern Hungary and Romania created geographic separations between Slavic dialects. Written documents of the 9th, 10th and 11th centuries demonstrate similar local features. For example, the Freising monuments show a dialect which contains some phonetic and lexical elements peculiar to Slovenian dialects. Significant continuous Slavic language texts exist from this period, beginning with the extant Old Church Slavonic texts, composed in the 9th century but copied in the 10th century. The end of the Common Slavic period is usually reckoned with the loss of weak years, which occurred in Bulgaria c. 950 AD but did not reach Russia until c. 1150 AD. This is clearly revealed in the texts themselves. During the centuries between the composition and copying of the OCS texts, the weak years disappeared as vowels, and as a result, the texts show marked instability in the representation. On the other hand, the Old East Slavic texts represent the weak years with almost complete etymological fidelity until nearly 2 centuries later. The terminology of these periods is not consistent. For example, Schenker speaks only of Early Proto-Slavonic and Late Proto-Slavonic, with the latter period beginning with the second regressive palatalization, due to the differing outcomes of pre-Proto-Slavic *X. Cortlandt's chronology, on the other hand, includes 6 stages after the Balto-Slavic period: Early Slavic, Early Middle Slavic, Late Middle Slavic, Young Proto-Slavic, Late Proto-Slavic, Disintegrating Slavic. The first regressive palatalization of velas may well have operated during early Common Slavic and is thought by Arnost Lemprek to have, specifically operated during the 5th century AD. The progressive palatalization of velas, if it is older, can predate this only by 200 to 300 years at most, since it postdates Proto-Germanic borrowings into Slavic, which are generally agreed to have occurred no earlier than the 2nd century AD. The monophthongization of OI is thought to have occurred near the end of Early Common Slavic or beginning of Middle Common Slavic, and the second regressive palatalization of velas not long afterwards. This implies that, until around the time of the earliest Slavic expansion, Slavic was a conservative language not so different from the various attested Baltic languages. First written Slavic languages. In the second half of the 9th century, the Slavic dialect spoken north of Thessaloniki, in the hinterlands of Macedonia, became the basis for the first written Slavic language, created by the brothers Cyril and Methodius, who translated portions of the Bible and other church books. The language they recorded is known as Old Church Slavonic. Old Church Slavonic is not identical to Proto-Slavic, having been recorded at least 2 centuries after the breakup of Proto-Slavic, and it shows features that clearly distinguish it from Proto-Slavic. However, it is still reasonably close, and the mutual intelligibility between Old Church Slavonic and other Slavic dialects of those days was proved by Cyril and Methodius's mission to Great Moravia and Pannonia. Their early South Slavic dialect used for the translations was clearly understandable to the local population, which spoke in early West Slavic. Dialect notation. See Proto-Balto-Slavic language #notation for much more detail on the uses of the most commonly encountered diacritics for indicating prosody and various other phonetic distinctions in different Balto-Slavic languages. Vowel notation. Two different and conflicting systems for denoting vowels are commonly in use in Indo-European and Balto-Slavic linguistics on one hand, and Slavic linguistics on the other. In the first, vowel length is consistently distinguished with a macron above the letter, while in the latter it is not clearly indicated. The following table explains these differences. For consistency, all discussions of sounds up to Middle Common Slavic use the Common Balto-Slavic notation of vowels, while discussions of Middle and Late Common Slavic and later dialects use the Slavic notation. Other vowel and consonant diacritics. Other marks used within Balto-Slavic and Slavic linguistics are the hachekon consonants, indicating a hushing quality, as in English kitchen, mission, vision. Various strongly palatal consonants, usually indicated by an acute accent or a hachek. The ogonek, indicating vowel nasalization. Prosodic notation. For Middle and Late Common Slavic, the following marks are used to indicate prosodic distinctions, based on the standard notation in Serbo-Croatian. Long rising. This indicates the Balto-Slavic acute accent in Middle Common Slavic only. Short rising. This indicates the Balto-Slavic acute accent in Late Common Slavic, where it was shortened. Long falling. This normally indicates the Balto-Slavic circumflex accent. In Late Common Slavic, it also indicates originally short accent that was lengthened in monosyllables. This secondary circumflex occurs only on the short vowels eo in an open syllable. Short falling. This indicates the Balto-Slavic short accent. In Late Common Slavic, this accent was lengthened in monosyllables. Neoacute. This indicates the Late Common Slavic neoacute accent, which was pronounced as a rising accent, usually long but short when occurring on some syllable types in certain languages. This results from retraction of the accent i.e., the Middle Common Slavic accent fell on the following syllable. Other prosodic diacritics. There are unfortunately multiple competing systems used to indicate prosody in different Balto-Slavic languages. The most important for this article are three-way system of Proto-Slavic, Proto-Balto-Slavic, Modern Lithuanian, acute tone versus circumflex tone versus short accent, four-way Serbo-Croatian system, also used in Slovenian and often in Slavic reconstructions, long rising, short rising, long falling, short falling. In the Charkavian dialect and other archaic dialects, the long rising accent is notated with a tilde, indicating its normal origin in the late Common Slavic neo-acute accent. Length only, as in Czech and Slovak, long versus short. Stress only, as in Russian, Ukrainian and Bulgarian, stressed versus unstressed.